Now, talks to end the longest-running conflict in Latin American history have led to a major breakthrough. Negotiations have been taking place in Cuba between the Colombian government and FARC rebels. President Juan Manuel Santos says a peace deal will be in place within 6 months. Well, the FARC is the oldest and largest group among Colombia's left-wing rebels. It was set up in 1964 as a peasant army fighting to reduce the gulf that still divides rich and poor in the South American country. FARC remains a force in some rural areas, especially in the southern jungles. The rebels have held hostages in secret camps for years. The group's estimated to take in between $500 and $600 million annually from the illegal drug trade. Lucia Newman reports.
An image speaks louder than 1,000 words. And this image of Colombia's president, Juan Manuel Santos, shaking hands with Timoleon Jimenez, leader of the FARC rebels, is one that skeptical Colombians could not have dreamed of.
On the 26th of March of 2016, at the very latest, exactly 6 months from now, we will say goodbye for good to the longest war in Colombia and of the Americas.
After almost 3 years of negotiations here in Havana, Colombian government and rebel negotiators reached a deal to guarantee punishment for perpetrators of gross human rights violations and war crimes, including members of the FARC.
Those who refuse to recognize their responsibility in these crimes will be sentenced to a maximum of 20 years in prison.
It is up to us now to multiply efforts to reach consensus on a bilateral ceasefire and transform into a legal political movement.
The long-sought agreement removes the last major stumbling block to a comprehensive peace deal to end nearly 60 years of war that has displaced more than 6 million Colombians and killed an estimated 220,000 others. Cuban President Raúl Castro, who has hosted the peace talks, was jubilant.
We have advanced further than ever before, and though there are still enormous difficulties to overcome, we now have the certainty they will be overcome.
The announcement came just 3 days after Pope Francis addressed the peace process directly here in Havana, saying, quote, "We have no right to fail yet again in the road to peace and reconciliation." The Pope's stern words were clearly directed not only at Colombian government and rebel leaders, but also at powerful groups who are opposed to the peace process, from the extreme political left to the right, including sectors of Colombia's military. And in a country as staunchly Catholic as Colombia, the Pope's blessing is seen as an important antidote to efforts to derail the process. If the accord is indeed signed within the year, it will not be enough. The final agreement must be approved by the Colombian people before the FARC lays down its weapons, and the long-sought process of peace and justice can begin. Lucia Newman, Jazeera, Havana.